Good morning, and how you doing? I just finished my last recording, actually, of another review, which was Going Infinite, regarding Sam Bankman-Fried, and I have enough time this morning to actually do another one. This actually is a book that I just finished uploading my audio recording for, which is, and without further ado, The Prince by Nicolo Machiavelli. Do I have the gloss just right here? There you go. You can read that a little bit. So, um, very old book, actually. Many consider this a classic, but unfortunately, like some things, like it's a classic, and you look at it from contemporary points of view, and you could be like, why do I care about this? Well, good literature should be appreciated, and it's something that a lot of people have read. There's value in you reading it as well, because then you have a common theme amongst other people. But then again, don't just read things that other people read. It goes in both directions. You put your eyes on whatever pages that you like, that you want to benefit from, or that you want to learn about, or that you want to be entertained by. You don't do it because other people are doing it. You don't have to just read the New York Times bestseller list. Find things that you like. But I actually had picked this up personally during a time in my life, a long, long time ago. I was trying to change careers. And when I didn't care about the job I was currently in, I'd gotten laid off, because that's what happens in professional society. You're not putting in anymore, they'll find someone else, get out of here. So when I was laid off, I did one of the things that I actually kind of enjoy doing is I go through my bookshelf and I make sure I put on one shelf all the books that I own but haven't read. And what I did this time was exactly that. Went through all the books that I own while I was looking for another job, and I actually even went to a used bookstore I like to frequent and picked out classics intentionally. And this is one of the ones I actually picked up. And the reason why is, while I had a very good high school and it educated me very well, the English department was actually also very phenomenal. Sorry about that. Um, we didn't go through what you would consider your normal high school reading lists. There were a lot of classical books that I had never put my eyes on. I don't think we went through things like Great Gatsby and Brave New World. We didn't go through The Inferno, The Portrait of Dorian Gray, The Prince. There's a lot of things that were mainstream school reading books which weren't mine. Or if they were on the list, we were actually asked to pick like 7 of a list of 50. And those are the ones I did not pick. So during this time of my life, I actually went through and decided to get all those classics you should have read before and read them. So I've actually had this one on my shelf for almost 20 years. That was the last time I read it. I said, listen, I want to reread it, and I'll actually reread it by doing an audio recording of it, which, by the way, because I do an audio recording, I listen to it 3 times. There's the time I read it, then the time I edit it, and then the proof listening to make sure I didn't leave anything in there that was bad, or the clicks are gone, or what have you. So I've gone through this 3 times recently, and hey, I enjoy it. It's a nice little treatise on if you were a prince in an area, things you should do to keep your city, your town, your kingdom yours. How to keep it safe, how to keep you safe, and how to thrive. Because I'm about to become a prince, so I actually need to know these things in my life. As you see here, very short book. In fact, when I go to Project Gutenberg, and I'll actually throw the link down below in case you want a free text version of this, there's other chapters along the way, or other treatises in the Project Gutenberg thing. I pulled out just the pages of this book, which was maybe 60 pages on a Word document. So, not very long. And in fact, when all's said and done, I think the audio recording is only about 3 hours and 40 minutes. So for some people, that might be 1 day's commute, or maybe even 2 days' commute. So, it's out there. But what is it? Well, it was written, like I said, many, many moons ago, and it literally talks about you can either be a prince through blood, literally the blood prince. You are the son of the king, and then the king is gonna die, and you'll take over the kingdom. But in the meantime, you are a prince. But the king can go off and defeat some other nation, and now someone has to rule that nation. They might send the prince along to do that. It's like a practice kingdom, if you will. Okay, they call that a prince by hereditary title. You may also become a prince because a king appoints you to be a prince. Literally, same scenario. I took over that area. You go forth and you rule that under me, but you'll be like my envoy. You'll be my prince in that new area. They also consider princes to be people who just conquered. You have Alexander the Great coming on through and takes over an area. Boom, I now own this area. How am I going to keep it? He can leave it to a trusty confidant or do it himself. So, and the funny thing about it is, and I never considered this before, whenever you have that new land that a prince is going to rule over, again, it could be a hereditary one or one that conquers, they call that area a principality. It's a prince area, a principality. The word breaks down pretty good. And I've heard about principalities in common day, even America, but not like a principality. So it was funny to actually get that play on words that I never realized before because, I'm slow. But it goes through what is a principality? What is a prince who controls a principality? What does it look like? And there's a few chapters up front, very quick, short chapters that talk about it. There's hereditary ones, there's mixed ones, this, that, and the other. But then it kind of goes into other chapters too. And again, these are not very long. There's 26 chapters on a 60-page book. So be the judge of how long they're going to be. They talk about things like, okay, if Alexander came through and destroyed a bunch of nations and made him his kingdom, and then installed his own people to be princes and rule over those kingdoms, why in the world, after Alexander died, did they not all revolt and maintain their independence afterwards? And it goes into details, being like, well, listen, the guy who actually was in charge of the area did it fairly. He treated the people well, or he armed them, and he made sure that they were part of defense of their own country. As long as you're not going in there and you're taxing them to death and you're taking all their money away, and especially you're not taking like the farmers' wives for your own good. If you leave people alone enough, they will never revolt against you. They talk about, let's say you do take over an area. You could take it over with arms, which usually is the number one way this was done back then. But then it's like, are they your arms? Was it your army? Did you hire mercenaries? Did you hire other people that you promised to have some of the land when you were done in order to do it for you? Well, there are pros to this and there's cons to this. And he goes through those kind of things. He even talks about things of, how the areas, it does stick around to Italy a lot. Mentions Africa a little bit, but Italy is the main focus in this novel. Not even a novel, it's almost like a treatise because it actually is non-fiction in a way. But in Italy, the towns and the areas were constantly at war, constantly being overruled by one person or another. You had the King of France coming through trying to take over some stuff. You had the King of Spain coming through trying to take over some stuff. In Italy itself, you had areas like the Orsini or the Colonnesi or the Florentines, even the Venetians, and then you got the Vatican and Rome. They're all there constantly vying for each other. So people might have a new prince one day and then a year later have a new one. Or even if they are badly ruled over, they'll revolt and then take over their own place. But a lot of times it goes into the details of like, okay, now that you've taken it over, what are you going to do next? How do you prevent the other area from not taking over? You can hire mercenaries to do your work for you, but once you've succeeded, what's stopping the mercenaries from just taking it for themselves? Since you would have no arms to defend yourselves, the mercenaries can now rule. So, it's a lot of back and forth that Nicolo Machiavelli is pretty much saying, why don't you just kind of like look at these thoughts of specific aspect of not only rulership, but ownership, treaties with other countries, and you name it. Sorry. And if you're going to be the new prince, and I think he does kind of write to somebody, he goes, you can use your arms as an Italian and you can create a larger princedom for yourself. You know, you can be the second coming of the savior of Italy. You can do this, but I suggest you keep your eyes open to these certain facts. And then chapter by chapter by chapter, he's talking about, like, this is what you can do with faith. This is what you do with the ecclesiastical prince, and how you're going to keep the Rome and Vatican, whatever, at ease. This is what you do with people who are your secretaries. This is what you should do to avoid flatterers and what they'll do against you. This is what you could do, pretty much about the barbarians that are at your gate. And then one by one hits all the topics that a prince should know, like, for instance, knowing war and the art of war, versus what you shouldn't go through, and that's the meanness, the wickedness, and whatever. You know, have renown. Have the people on your side. Oh, and by the way, while the people are important to have on your side, you gotta also have the nobles on your side. These are ways the nobles can be on your side. And in a very basic terminology, they might say the nobles are there to oppress the people, and the people are there to make sure they're not oppressed by the nobles. Insert yourself in between that, keep the nobles happy, and keep the people happy. How do you do that? And it'll even go into detail, saying, like, you're a prince, you can replace a noble. You can't replace the people. But then again, if you're continuing replacing nobles, you will have a noble revolt, and then how goes that with you? There's even a section here regarding fortresses. Are fortresses good? In fact, the name of the chapter itself are fortresses and many other things to which princes often resort, advantageous or hurtful. And it tells you in what times they are good to have and in what times they are bad to have. And what it really boils down to is, are the people on your side or are they not on your side? Because a lot of the conquerors will come in and either destroy fortresses or build them. And when is that a good idea and when is that a bad idea? So I'm going to keep this pretty short right now because, like I said, it is a very short book. Not much to really say on it. But this is something that's good to listen to. It's good to read. You know, you might never need to be a prince, but you know something? Maybe you're writing a book one day and some of these can actually be decent ideas. This will be part of your world building and part of your how does the countryside look, feel, what are the people like? Do they like them? Do they not like them? Sometimes little things like this are a matter of a history of Italy, which may or may not fascinate you. And sometimes things like this are a matter of, never thought of that before. This was thought-inspiring. I liked it. And you know something? Either I took 3 hours and 40 minutes out of my day to listen to it, or I spent 2 hours to read the whole thing. Who knows? But it's a classic. I recommend having it in your mental library of things that you've gone through, and I hope you pick them up one day. And you don't even have to pick one up. Like I said, because it's in the public domain, Project Gutenberg has a copy of this. I'll put it in the section below. You can see the link. You can actually download it for your Kindle. You can download it and print it. You can do whatever you want to do. It's out there. So, Nicolo Machiavelli, The Prince, give it a shot. I hope you enjoy it. Okay? As always, I got to say things like, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe, yada yada. And I hope I can do more of these for you. Alright? In the meantime, you enjoy the rest of your day or evening, whatever time you're watching this. Bye-bye.